Macdonald stood on the porch of the house he used to call Success, while Olivia rolled her second suitcase down the front steps like she could not leave fast enough. The wheels dragged hard against the concrete. Inside the house, the air still smelled like the dinner neither of them touched. Outside, Alabama moved the way it always did on warm evenings. A lawnmower buzzed somewhere down the street. Somebody's auntie laughed too loudly from a backyard cookout nearby. Cars rolled slowly past the neighborhood like people suddenly had errands they did not really need to run. Nobody wanted to stare directly, but everybody was watching. Macdonald noticed curtains shifting across the street. Funny how people suddenly became interested in windows whenever somebody else's marriage started breaking apart. Olivia stopped beside the car without looking at him. Her dress looked expensive. Her nails were polished. Her posture stayed proud. But her patience was gone. Macdonald swallowed slowly. His voice sounded tired even to himself. "So that's it?" Olivia finally looked at him. For a moment, her face almost softened. Almost. Then she crossed her arms tightly and glanced back at the house that used to hold parties, catered dinners, expensive wine, and smiling. Friends who disappeared the moment the money did. "I can't keep living like this," she said quietly. Macdonald stepped off the porch. "Things are bad right now," he said. "I know that, but I built everything once already. I'll fix it." Olivia laughed under her breath. Not cruel, not loud, worse, disappointed. Trying doesn't change what happened. The sunset stretched gold across the neighborhood, but nothing about that moment felt warm. Macdonald looked at the woman he loved and realized she had already left emotionally long before she packed those bags. Then Olivia said the sentence that hit harder than losing the business itself. "I didn't marry struggle, Macdonald." Silence. No music, no shouting. Just the sound of a suitcase wheel tipping sideways before Olivia fixed it without emotion. Macdonald stood frozen while she got inside the car, and as she drove away from the house, half the neighborhood suddenly found reasons to stop peeking through. Their curtains. The millionaire had lost everything, his money, his marriage, and whatever pride he still had left. But that was not even the worst part. Because years later, Macdonald sat outside a small repair shop wearing faded jeans and an old shirt with grease near the sleeve. No luxury car, no expensive watch, no confident smile, just exhaustion. He stared down at the cracked sidewalk while traffic moved through the Alabama heat. Then a shadow stopped in front of him. A woman held out a food plate wrapped in foil. Macdonald looked up slowly. She smiled at him like she knew something the rest of the world forgot. "You still helping people in the rain?" she asked softly. "Or did bankruptcy retire that part of you too?" Macdonald blinked, confused, tired, trying to place her face, and for the first time in weeks, he laughed. If you believe loyalty should matter more than money, go ahead and like this video. And subscribe to Love, Money, and Secret, because stories like this remind us what real love actually looks like. Before we continue, may God bless every person listening tonight. May your home know peace, may your struggles become temporary, and may the people beside you love your heart more than your wallet. For anyone rebuilding their life after disappointment, may better days find you soon. Amen. Welcome to Love, Money, and Secret, where America's greatest stories and life lessons meet creativity and heart. If you're new to the family, we're grateful to have you here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It helps us bring more unforgettable stories your way. Before Alabama ever saw Macdonald standing on that porch with nothing but shame in his throat, they saw him as the kind of man life had chosen to favor. He was the white millionaire who drove through town in clean trucks, wore suits that looked freshly pressed even after a long day, and carried himself with a calm confidence that made people listen when he spoke. He owned rental properties, land, work vehicles, and a house so large people slowed down just to look at the front gate. But Macdonald was not loud with money. He tipped well, he shook hands firmly, he spoke to janitors with the same respect he gave bankers. At church, he did not sit in front to be seen. He sat where he could listen. Olivia loved that people noticed him. More than that, she loved that people noticed her beside him. At 38, Olivia carried beauty like it was part of her language. She was a black woman with polished style, smooth confidence, and a smile that could turn heads before she said a word. On Sundays, she wore elegant dresses that made women whisper compliments and men lower their eyes out of respect. She loved brunch after church. She loved family cookouts with loud music, full plates, and aunties asking questions nobody invited. She loved community events where she could walk in as Mrs. Macdonald and feel the room adjust. Their marriage looked perfect, from the outside. Macdonald paid for charity tables. Olivia hosted dinners. They smiled in photos. They stood close at events. People called them proof that love and success could live in the same house. But sometimes, late at night, Macdonald sat alone in his office staring at papers Olivia never asked about. The numbers were changing. The calls from business partners were shorter. One property had gone quiet. Another deal had stalled. Macdonald did not tell Olivia yet. He thought he still had time. But money has a way of leaving softly before everybody hears the door close. The first sign was the phone. Macdonald's phone used to ring so much, Olivia joked that it was his second wife. Contractors, tenants, brokers, church organizers, charity, boards, business partners, everybody wanted a piece of his time. Later, the same phone sat quiet on the kitchen counter. At first, Olivia did not worry. She had seen difficult months before. Rich people called them setbacks. Poor people called them reality. Olivia believed Macdonald was too smart to fall completely. But one Monday morning, a truck disappeared from the driveway. By Friday, another was gone. Macdonald said it was only temporary. Olivia stared through the window. Temporary has been visiting this house too long. He said nothing. Soon the dinner stopped. The invitations slowed. People who once laughed at Macdonald's jokes now crossed grocery aisles like they had forgotten his face. One woman who used to hug Olivia at every fundraiser barely waved from her car. That embarrassed Olivia more than she admitted. One evening, Macdonald sat at the kitchen table with papers spread in front of him. The house was quiet, too quiet for a place that used to hold music, guests, and the smell of catered food. Olivia stood across from him with her arms folded. So what now? She asked. Macdonald rubbed both hands over his face. I'm working through it. Working through it? Her voice stayed low, but it carried sharp edges. Macdonald, the cars are gone, the accounts are low, the big house is becoming a problem. What exactly are we working through? He looked up, tired but still trying to stand inside his pride. I built everything once, he said. I can build again. Olivia looked around the kitchen like the walls had insulted her. I did not marry a promise, she said. Macdonald leaned back slowly. That is not fair. No, Olivia answered. What is not fair is watching my life shrink. While you keep asking me to believe, his chest tightened. I need my wife beside me. Olivia looked away. Trying does not pay bills, Macdonald. By the time Olivia packed, the house already felt empty. Not because the furniture was gone, not because the rooms were quiet, because her heart had left before her hands ever touched a suitcase. Macdonald stood near the bedroom door as she folded dresses with calm precision. She did not rush. She did not cry. She placed shoes in one bag, jewelry in another, and zipped everything shut like she was closing a chapter she no longer wanted to read. Olivia, he said softly. She paused but did not turn. Please don't do this. Her shoulders lifted with a slow breath. I already stayed longer than I wanted to. That sentence cut deep, but Macdonald kept his voice steady. We are married. This is when we are supposed to hold on. Olivia turned at last. Her face was beautiful, but something in her eyes had gone cold. I held on when I thought there was still something to hold. Macdonald stared at her. So I was only worth loving when the money made life easy? She looked hurt for half a second, but pride quickly covered it. You don't understand what this feels like for me. Macdonald gave a sad laugh. For you? She looked away. Outside, the Alabama evening glowed warm, but the house felt colder. Then winter. Olivia rolled her suitcase down the hallway. The wheels made a rough sound against the floor, each turn pulling something out of Macdonald's chest. He followed her to the porch. Across the street, curtains shifted. A car slowed near the corner. Somebody pretended to check their mailbox. Macdonald saw all of it. Olivia reached the car and opened the door. So that's it? He asked. She looked back with polished nails resting against the frame. I didn't marry struggle, Macdonald. The words landed quietly, but they broke something loud inside him. She drove away without looking back. Macdonald remained on the porch until the sky turned dark. The house behind him was still standing, but it no longer felt like home. If you believe loyalty should matter more than luxury, like this video, and comment honestly, did Olivia love Macdonald or did she love the lifestyle? The millionaire had gone broke, and his wife had walked away. 10 years before Macdonald sat outside that repair shop with tired eyes, empty pockets, Alabama knew him as a man who still had plenty. Back then he had money in the bank, business calls on his phone, and polished shoes that had probably never touched muddy water in their life. That afternoon, the sky had been gray since morning, but people still moved through town as usual. Cars passed. Workers stopped for lunch. Church ladies picked up plates for home. The smell of fried fish, ribs, cornbread, and sweet tea floated from a small food stand near a busy corner. The street vendor was 24 then. She had no food truck, no big sign, no fancy equipment, just a folding table, a small tent, a cooler, serving trays, and hands that worked faster than worry could catch her. She smiled at customers, counted change carefully, and kept telling herself that one good day could cover 3 bad ones. But Alabama weather did not ask permission before changing. The rain came hard. One minute, people were standing in line. The next, they were running for cars, covering their heads with bags, church programs, and whatever else they could grab. The street vendor rushed to hold the tent down, but the wind pulled against it like it had a personal problem with her business. "Come on, not today," she muttered, gripping one metal pole. A container slid off the table. Cornbread hit the wet ground. Sweet tea tipped over. Foil pans shifted. The rain beat against everything she had worked for that morning. People saw her struggling. Some slowed down. Some looked sorry. Nobody stepped in. She tried to lift the cooler with one hand while holding the tent with the other, but the whole setup leaned dangerously. That was when a clean truck pulled near the curb. Macdonald stepped out in expensive shoes, looked at the collapsing tent, and walked straight into the rain. Macdonald reached the food stand just as one side of the tent dipped low. "Ma'am," he called over the rain, "you're about to lose your whole business out here." The street vendor looked at his shoes first, not his face. "And you're about to lose those fancy shoes if you keep standing in that water." Macdonald paused. For one quick second, the rain, the mess, and the stress could not stop him from laughing. "Well," he said, grabbing the tent pole, "I guess we're both taking risks today." She gave him a sharp look, but there was humor hiding under her frustration. "Can you hold that side? I can hold it. Don't just say it because you're rich." Macdonald lifted the pole higher. "I'm saying it because I have two hands." That made her smile despite herself. Together they dragged the tent closer to the side of the building. Macdonald carried the cooler. She gathered the pans that could still be saved. Rain soaked his suit jacket and ran down his face, but he never complained. When they finally got everything under shelter, she looked at the ruined food on the ground and went quiet. Macdonald noticed. "How much did you lose?" She shook her head. "Enough. That is not a number. It is when you don't want to cry in front of a stranger." Macdonald reached into his wallet. She stepped back. "I'm not asking you for anything." "I know," he said. "That is why I'm offering—" He paid for every plate the rain had ruined. She stared at the money, stunned. "Why would you do that?" Macdonald looked at the wet table, the tired hands, the food she had fought to protect. "Because people need food made with heart," he said. "Don't quit." Her face softened. For once, she had no joke ready. Macdonald walked back to his truck, soaked from shoulder to shoe. She watched him leave, holding the money in one hand and hope in the other. She never forgot him. 10 years later, Macdonald looked nothing like the man who had walked through rain to save a stranger's food stand. He sat outside a small repair shop in Alabama, wearing old jeans and a faded shirt with grease near one sleeve. His hands rested between his knees. His shoulders carried the kind of weight money could not explain. The big house was gone. The trucks were gone. Olivia was gone. What remained was a man trying to remember how to stand without the life that once held him up. The afternoon heat pressed against the sidewalk. Cars passed without slowing. A few people recognized him, but recognition did not mean kindness. Some looked away too quickly. Some looked too long. Macdonald kept his eyes low. He had come to the repair shop asking about work on an old vehicle he could barely afford to keep. Now he was waiting outside, because being inside with strangers felt heavier than the heat. Across the street, a food truck pulled into the lot. The smell reached him before the voice did. Fried fish, ribs, cornbread, sweet tea. He looked up slowly. A black woman stepped down from the truck, carrying a covered plate. She was older than the young woman from the food stand, but her confidence had deepened. She had the same quick eyes, the same half smile that looked ready to challenge anybody feeling too proud. She studied him for a moment. Macdonald did not recognize her at first. She walked closer and held out the plate. "You still helping people in the rain?" she asked. "Or did bankruptcy retire that part of you too?" Macdonald blinked. His forehead tightened as he searched her face. She lifted the plate a little higher. "Eat first. Memory works better when the stomach is not arguing." That pulled a laugh out of him before he could stop it. A real laugh. Small, rough, but real. He took the plate slowly. The smell of cornbread rose between them, and suddenly the past opened in his mind. Rain. A falling tent. Ruined food. Fancy shoes and muddy water. His voice came out quiet. "You're the woman from the food stand." She smiled. "And you're the man who forgot he was still worth something." Macdonald looked down at the plate in his hands, still trying to understand how a woman he had helped 10 years ago was now standing in front of him when he had almost nobody left. The street vendor leaned against the side of her food truck and watched him take the first bite. "Well?" she asked. Macdonald nodded slowly. "That is good. That is not enough praise for food that just rescued your mood." A small smile touched his face. "It is very good. That sounds better." For a few minutes, they stood there in the Alabama heat while traffic passed and the repair shop door opened and closed behind him. She did not ask for details about Olivia. She did not ask how much money he had lost. She did not treat him like a town story. That alone made Macdonald breathe easier. After he finished eating, she pointed toward the food truck. You still no business? Macdonald looked confused. Some good, because I know food, people, and hard work, but permits, suppliers, pricing, schedules, event planning, all that paper headache, I could use help. He stared at her. You want me to work with you? I said help. Don't make it sound fancy. Macdonald looked away, embarrassed. People will talk, she laughed. People already talk. At least give them something useful to talk about. The next morning, Macdonald showed up early. He wore old jeans, a plain shirt, and the kind of quiet humility that only comes after pride has been broken. People noticed. One man passing by smirked. From millionaire to food truck helper? Macdonald lifted a box of supplies and gave a calm reply. At least this truck still has customers. The street vendor hid a smile. That day, Macdonald checked inventory, organized receipts, cleaned coolers, and helped plan the week's stops. His hands were not used to that kind of work anymore, but he did not complain. For the first time since Olivia left, he ended the day tired for a reason that felt honest. Something inside him had started standing again. The work did not make Macdonald rich again, at least not in the way Alabama used to measure rich. There were no boardroom tables, no polished golf club lunches, no expensive dinners where people smiled with hidden motives, just folding chairs, paper receipts, cooking oil, food trays, event calls, and late nights parked behind the food truck while the street vendor counted cash with tired fingers. Macdonald brought order to what she had built with strength. He created a simple budget. He listed suppliers. He compared prices. He helped her stop undercharging for plates that took hours to prepare. She did not like that part. You want me to charge that much for ribs? Macdonald looked at the numbers. You are losing money being nice. I am not losing money. I am feeding people. You can feed people and still respect your labor. She narrowed her eyes. You sound like a man who never had to stretch $10. Macdonald accepted the correction without pride. You are right. Teach me that part. That answer softened her. So she did. She showed him how to season by memory, how to judge heat without staring at a clock, how to serve customers who came hungry for more than food. He showed her how to negotiate event prices, how to track costs, and how to stop letting people take advantage of her kindness. They argued over sauce prices. They laughed when he burned cornbread. She teased him for folding napkins like he was preparing for a hotel dinner. He teased her for calling every customer baby whether they were 18 or 80. Slowly, the heaviness around Macdonald began to lift. Some nights, after the last customer left, they sat near the truck under the Alabama sky, eating leftover fish from paper plates. No fancy table, no expensive wine, no applause. Just peace. One night she looked at him and said, You are quieter now. Macdonald nodded. I am listening more. She smiled gently. Good. Life finally got your attention. He laughed softly. And something warm began growing between them, not rushed, not loud, built on respect. By the end of that season, people in Alabama stopped laughing so loudly. The food trucks started showing up everywhere. Church gatherings, weekend festivals, office lunch events, community fundraisers, small birthday parties, places where Macdonald used to arrive in a suit. He now arrived carrying trays, checking orders, and making sure the truck had enough supplies to last through the crowd. At first, people stared. Some whispered, some waited for him to look ashamed. But Macdonald no longer moved like a man begging the town to remember who he used to be. He moved like a man learning who he was without the money. That made people curious. The street vendor's food drew them in, but the way the two of them worked together made them stay. She greeted customers with jokes and warmth. Macdonald handled timing, payments, setup, and planning. When lines grew long, he stepped beside her without being asked. One afternoon after a church event, an older woman looked at Macdonald and said, You look better than you did when you were wearing all those suits. Macdonald smiled. I feel better. The street vendor heard it and glanced at him from the serving window. Later, while they packed up, she said, You meant that? Yes. You don't miss all of it? Macdonald loaded a cooler into the truck before answering. I miss parts of who I thought I was, but I don't miss chasing people who only respected my wallet. She leaned against the truck and studied him. That sounds like healing. It feels like learning. Business kept growing. Orders came in faster. People asked for weekend bookings. The street vendor's name was not needed for people to know. Her food, her work spoke clearly enough. Macdonald became calmer. He smiled without forcing it. He slept better. He stopped checking whether old friends called. He was no longer chasing status. He was building something real. If you have ever had to rebuild your life after losing everything, this part of the story is for you. Like this video, comment I can rebuild, and subscribe to Love, Money, and Secret for more stories with heart. By the time Alabama started respecting Macdonald again, he had already learned not to need their approval. The Alabama Summer Festival filled the downtown streets with music, folding tables, church laughter, and the smell of smoked food drifting through warm evening air. The food truck had one of the longest lines there. Macdonald stood near the side window checking orders while the street vendor handed out plates with the same calm confidence she carried everywhere. Customers laughed at her jokes. Children pointed excitedly toward the menu board. Older couples waited patiently with fans moving in their hands against the heat. Macdonald looked comfortable there. Not rich, not important, peaceful. That was the first thing Olivia noticed when she stepped out of her car across the street. For a moment, she simply stared. She had heard rumors over the past few months. People mentioned Macdonald helping with a food truck business. Some sounded amused by it. Others sounded impressed. Olivia never asked questions directly. Pride would not let her. But now she saw it herself. Macdonald moved through the crowd with easy confidence, carrying trays, helping customers, smiling naturally instead of the stiff social smile he used to wear at charity dinners. He looked lighter. That unsettled her more than she expected. Because when Olivia left him, part of her believed he would stay broken without the life they lost. Instead, he looked alive again. Then her eyes shifted toward the street vendor. The woman stood beside Macdonald comfortably, close enough to understand him, without many words. She never tried to compete for attention. She did not cling to him. She simply worked beside him with quiet certainty. Olivia felt something tighten inside her chest. Not anger, something worse. Regret. Macdonald looked up while carrying a tray toward a customer. Their eyes met across the crowd. His steps slowed for half a second. Olivia expected bitterness, shock, pain. But Macdonald only looked surprised before giving a small, polite nod. That calm reaction hurt more than anger would have. The street vendor followed his gaze and noticed Olivia standing nearby. She stayed graceful, stayed calm. Then she handed another customer a plate and said softly to Macdonald, "Looks like your past finally got hungry." Macdonald almost laughed. Almost. Olivia waited until the line became shorter before walking toward the truck. Every step felt heavier than she expected. Macdonald noticed her coming but stayed focused on stacking containers near the counter. Years ago, seeing Olivia walk toward him would have made his entire attention shift instantly. Now he simply finished what he was doing first. That difference did not escape her. "You look different," Olivia said carefully once she reached him. Macdonald glanced at her. "So do you." She gave a small smile, though it faded quickly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The festival noise carried around them, music, laughter, children running past, but between Macdonald and Olivia, the silence felt private. Olivia looked at the truck. "So this is your life now?" Macdonald rested a hand against the counter. "Part of it? And you're happy?" The question came out softer than she intended. Macdonald thought about it honestly before answering. "Yes." That single word shifted something in Olivia's face. Years earlier, she had seen him wealthy, respected, admired. But peace? That was different. She lowered her eyes briefly before speaking again. "I heard things were getting better for you. They are—" Another silence settled. The street vendor worked nearby without interrupting. She gave space, without leaving completely, secure enough not to fear the conversation. Olivia noticed that too. Finally, she looked directly at Macdonald. "When I left," she stopped herself and swallowed slowly. "I thought I was choosing stability." Macdonald said nothing. "I kept telling myself I made the practical decision." Her voice weakened slightly, but lately I've been wondering if I was just selfish. The honesty surprised even her. Macdonald remained calm, though old memories moved quietly behind his eyes. The porch, the suitcases, the loneliness that followed. Olivia took a breath. "I made a mistake." The words hung between them. Years ago, hearing that sentence would have shattered every wall inside. Macdonald. Now he simply looked at her with quiet understanding. Not hatred, not triumph, just truth. Olivia stood waiting for an answer while festival lights glowed softly across the Alabama street. Macdonald looked at her for a long moment. Not because he was deciding whether to punish her, because he was realizing he no longer needed to. Years ago, he would have begged for this moment. He would have. Replayed her apology in his mind like a man starving for closure, but life beside the food truck had changed him slowly. The street vendor had given him something Olivia never understood. How to offer during hard times. Dignity without conditions. Macdonald folded his arms loosely and spoke with a calm voice. "I was angry for a long time." Olivia lowered her eyes. "But not anymore," he continued. "Losing everything forced me to see things clearly." She looked back at him carefully. "And what did you see?" Macdonald glanced toward the food truck where the street vendor laughed with customers while wrapping plates. I saw who stayed kind when there was nothing left to gain. Olivia's face tightened with emotion. I know I hurt you. Yes, Macdonald answered honestly. You did. The truth landed gently, but it still carried weight. Olivia nodded slowly, accepting it. Macdonald stepped a little closer, not with romance, not with bitterness, simply with peace. You left when I needed a wife, he said. I'm not saying that to shame you. I'm saying it because it's true. Olivia blinked quickly, trying to hold herself together. Macdonald continued softly. I hope life treats you well, Olivia. I truly do, but I'm not going backward anymore. No raised voice, no revenge, no humiliation, just a man finally free from the pain he once carried. That hurt Olivia more than anger ever could. Behind them, a few nearby customers had quietly followed the conversation without pretending otherwise. The emotional tension settled gently across the crowd. Then the street vendor leaned out the truck window holding fresh cornbread. You done having rich people drama near my food? She asked. Or should I start charging emotional damage fees? The sudden joke broke the heaviness instantly. Several customers laughed. Even Olivia smiled through her sadness. Macdonald shook his head, laughing softly for the second time that evening. And standing there beneath warm festival lights, he realized peace felt better than proving anybody wrong. After the festival, Macdonald did not spend the night thinking about Olivia the way he once would have. That surprised him. Years ago, one look from Olivia could have pulled his heart in two. Confusion. One apology might have made him forget every lonely night, every unpaid bill, every silent room in that house after she left. But now, when Macdonald drove away beside the street vendor, the only feeling sitting heavy in his chest was peace. The food truck rolled through Alabama streets under soft evening light. The smell of cornbread still filled the air. Macdonald rested one hand near the open window while the street vendor drove, humming quietly like the whole world had not just watched his past walk up to him. You're quiet, she said. I'm thinking. That sounds expensive. He laughed softly. Not anymore. She glanced at him, smiling. Good. I don't have rich man counseling money. Macdonald leaned back and looked at the road ahead. I thought seeing Olivia would hurt more. And did it? He took a slow breath. It reminded me of pain. But it did not pull me back into it. The street vendor nodded, saying nothing for a moment. That was one thing Macdonald loved about her. She did not rush his healing. She did not fill silence just because silence arrived. She let him feel what needed feeling, then handed him food when words were not enough. In the weeks that followed, Macdonald embraced the life he once might have judged from a distance. He woke early, he loaded coolers, he checked orders, he helped clean the truck after long nights, he sat outside under Alabama skies eating from paper plates and laughing until his chest felt light. The food truck kept growing, more bookings came in, more people waited in line. But Macdonald no longer measured success by gates, suits, or who invited him to dinner. He measured it by peace, by honest work, by the woman who stood beside him when there was nothing left to impress anybody with, and every day, loving her became harder to deny. One evening, after a long day serving plates near a church parking lot, Macdonald and the street vendor sat on the back step of the food truck with 2 cups of sweet tea between them. The crowd was gone. The tables were folded. The last tray had been packed away. For once, neither of them was rushing. Macdonald looked at his hands. They were rougher now than they used to be. Small marks from lifting supplies, a faint burn from a tray he had grabbed too quickly. Evidence of work he had learned to respect. I used to think losing everything ruined me, he said. The street vendor looked over at him. He continued, but I think it saved me. She stayed quiet, letting him speak. When I had money, I thought I knew who loved me. I thought attention meant respect. I thought comfort meant happiness. He gave a sad smile. I was wrong about a lot. She lowered her cup. You were not wrong about everything. Macdonald turned to her. She looked toward the empty parking lot, then back at him. That day in the rain, you did not know me. Nobody was watching. You had nothing to gain from helping me. Her voice softened. I respected you before the town praised you. I respected you before you lost. Everything. I respected you when you were soaked in fancy shoes trying to save my little food stand. Macdonald's throat tightened. She smiled gently. So when I saw you outside that repair shop, I did not see a broken millionaire. I saw the same man who helped me when he did not have to. For a moment, Macdonald could not answer. Then he reached for her hand. She let him take it. No big speech, no rushing, just 2 people sitting close under the Alabama evening, understanding what had been growing between them for months. Macdonald whispered, I almost missed you. She squeezed his hand. No, she said softly. You just had to lose the wrong life before you could recognize the right one. He smiled, and this time the warmth between them no longer needed hiding. Months later, the food truck stood at another public event in Alabama, but this time, everything felt different. The line stretched longer than ever. Families laughed near folding tables. Church members carried plates to their cars. Children danced near the music while the smell of ribs, fish, and cornbread wrapped around the evening like home. Macdonald stood beside the street vendor, not behind her, not above her, but with her. That was the difference. He was not trying to become the man he used to be. He was becoming someone better. People greeted him with real warmth now, not because of his bank account, not because of his old house, not because of the cars he once parked in the driveway. They respected him because they had seen him fall, work, change, and rise with humility. The street vendor handed him a plate and said, "Don't stand there," looking emotional. "Customers are hungry?" Macdonald laughed. "You ever going to let me have a serious moment? Not near my cornbread?" He looked at her, and his smile softened. "I love you." She paused. For once, she had no quick joke ready. The noise around them seemed to fade just enough for that truth to stand between them. Then she smiled, warm and steady. "I know," she said. "I was waiting for you to catch up." Macdonald laughed and reached for her hand. Across the event, Olivia stood near the edge of the crowd. She saw them. She saw Macdonald smiling freely. She saw the street vendor standing beside him with peace, not pride. She saw a kind of love that did not depend on wealth, applause, or status. For the first time, Olivia understood what she had lost. But she did not interrupt. She simply lowered her eyes, accepted the lesson, and walked away quietly. Macdonald did not see her leave. His eyes were on the woman who had stayed. If this story touched your heart, share it with somebody who needs to remember that losing money is painful, but losing fake love can make room for real peace. Like, comment, and subscribe to Love, Money, and Secret for more stories filled with heart and life lessons. Because money may attract attention, but only loyalty can build a home.